What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to the main event deep dive for UFC Vegas 57. We have Arman Tsarukyan going against Mateusz Gamrot. And yeah, this is a very, very good fight, a very high level fight. I am looking forward to it. As always, I'm here with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. This is a great card. 12 great fights. Really looking forward to all of them. And I think that this is a very high level main event. I was looking forward to it. I was very excited when I heard, because it was supposed to be Tim Elliott versus Amir Al-Bazzi. And I believe Elliott had to pull out there. So when that happened, I was like, oh man, if they can make this the main event, and they did, it's a 5-round fight. And I was really happy. And then getting prepared for today's show, watched a lot of tape on both of these guys, and I'm even more excited now. This is such a high level main event between two really well-rounded young mixed martial artists. Tsarukyan only 25, and Gamrot's right here in his prime at 31 years of age. And he's been fighting since he was 21. It's a great fight. I cannot wait to break it down with you, dude.
Yeah, me too. And I was the same way. I was watching tape for a couple hours on these guys, and to be honest, I'm kind of stuck on as far as a pick goes. I mean, both guys are so good. Both guys are so well rounded. Sarukian striking's coming along. Gamrot, the dude's literally 21-1, arguably 22-0. These guys are so good. There's not a ton of weaknesses in these guys' game. So I'm excited to break it down with you, Weezy. Excited to break it down with the chat. See if we can find anything from a betting perspective, as always, and most importantly, make some money on this fight and enjoy it as well. It's gonna be a good one. Let us shout out the chat before we get started, guys. As always, leave a like, subscribe here to the MMA Engine channel. Let's keep growing this, guys. Lots of stuff coming forward in the very near future, maybe even this week as well. So lots of great stuff coming your guys' way. Philip, first one in the chat. What is up, Philip? How you doing? Headley one saying hard to lay chalk on Arman. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the Lion a little bit, but we see that Arman's a really big favorite here. And I don't know. We'll talk about it, Weezy. We got Lou Betcha saying Brady, Weezy, get all the good fights. I'm excited to break down Parisian and Badeau and maybe pick up the scraps. Well, you never know. Weezy, maybe you'll do a balls deep on the Parisian Badeau fight, huh?
Dude, we should do that like Friday night. We all get wasted and like put it out at like midnight and just laugh and have a good time talking about what a trash fight that is. Because there's so many good ones, Magny Rakhmonov, this one, Manis versus Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov's out. There's so many great fights on this card, and then they put Parisian versus Badeau on the main card. It's a bit of a head scratcher, but these guys are kind of high level heavyweights when it comes to MMA Twitter and just the people who like to kind of clown on guys. So it would be ripe for parody for sure.
I can only imagine like an hour-long special on that fight, just talking shit the whole time. That'd be funny. Daniel saying Rockman on Violence Week, boys, absolutely cannot wait for that one. Heather Wayne saying this card for betting is a little weak. UFC 276 looks like a good betting card. I've not looked into 276 yet, but for this card, I actually like a lot of spots, a lot of plus money spots as well. Maybe not from a side perspective, but I think there's a lot of props that do stick out for me. Cole saying stoked for another banger fight night. I need you guys' help for me to pick a side here. Hey, I need help picking a side, dude. This fight's tough, man. Awesome main event matchmaking. Absolutely. We got Rob in the chat. We got Dad saying, oi. We have Brandon in the chat. Quaver. We have Victor saying, what's up, Brady? Weezy in chat. What is up? We got Chris in the chat as well. This fight is no fried Demopolis, but it'll do it. It's definitely not fried Demopolis. Raw Torque in the chat. We got Carrillo in the chat. What is up? And we got Paul in the chat as well saying, Dawkins ruined my night. Yeah, I had a 12-leg parlay for fun because I was at the event, and Dawkins did ruin that 12-leg parlay right off the bat. So it happens. We'll start with this fight, though. We have the main event, UFC Vegas 57. Good card, underrated card, I think. Tsarukyan, he's 25 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. Gamrot, 31 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. Tsarukyan is going to be 6 years younger, and it's going to be Gamrot with a 3-inch height advantage, and it's going to be Tsarukyan with a 2-inch reach advantage. As far as the last few fights, Tsarukyan is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against OAM, a decision win against Davi Ramos, a decision win against Matt Frivola, and then a knockout win against Christos Giagos, and then a knockout win against Joe Alvarez. And it seems like Tsarukyan, like each time we see this guy, he just levels up so much. Remember his debut with Islam Makhachev. The kid comes in at like 21 years old, 22 years old. It goes out there and He's competitive. Obviously, he loses every single round, but he was a lot more competitive than a lot of people expected, including me. And then as his career has gone on, I mean, the best he's ever looked was that Joel Alvarez fight. He went out there and looked like a complete killer. He finally got that UFC finish against Christos Giagos as well. And he's only 25 years old. I mean, I think the sky is the limit for this guy. And then you have Mateusz Gamrot. This guy is a 22-fight veteran. He's been in multiple 5-round fights. You could argue that this guy's undefeated. He had that loss in his debut against Guram Kudus-Taladze, a very close fight. You had the takedowns of Gamrot, and then you had Guram knocked him down, hurt him a couple times there. I personally scored it for Gamrot, but it was a really close fight, really competitive fight. He knocked out Scott Holtzman. He submitted Jeremy Stevens in the first round, and then he finished Diego Ferreira, I believe, in that second round. So both these guys have looked phenomenal thus far in the UFC. And like somebody in the chat said earlier, this is phenomenal matchmaking. I think this is a very, very good fight and very well deserving of a main event, Weezy.
Yeah, dude, you got to bring up that donation from F. Carrillo, one of the funniest ones we'll ever get in the history of the channel, I'm sure, dude.
To the Chinese Greco-Roman Institute director. Yeah. Hey, dude, who was the Greco-Roman champion we talked about last night?
So there's 3 of them now. It's like Yu Hazong was one, Mahashate was another one, and then I'm guessing it's Shayulan Nurdenbeka is maybe a Greco-Roman champion over there too. But he can actually wrestle.
Yeah.
So maybe he's actually in the weight class where more than one person shows up to the tournament. But the Chinese Greco-Roman thing, it's great. It's just great.
Yeah,
it's like the Iranian hockey team, you know?
Yeah. That's good. Appreciate you, F. Carrillo, as always, and bringing some comedy as well. I love it.
Oh man, so yeah, okay. So let's quickly talk about those measurables. I mean, I'm giving Tsarukyan a slight advantage in the measurables just because he's 6 years younger and he's got that 2-inch reach advantage, and those are the 2 most statistically significant areas of the measurables. But Gamrot's 2 inches taller and he's a southpaw, and in the experience, I got a slight edge to Gamrot. But when I'm going through the advantages and disadvantages or in each area of the fight, I'm just not finding a lot of big advantages that are going either way. There is one that I will talk about where I feel like somebody has a significant advantage over the other guy, but the advantages that I'm going to be talking about today, Brady, are very, very slight, but it's a slight advantage to Gamrot, right? He's got 2 more pro fights. He's got 110 more minutes in the pro cage and 3.5 more years as a pro. So we like that. We like that experience advantage from Gamrot. But Arman's been the busier fighter. He's fighting 3 times a year on his almost 7-year career, as opposed to Gamrot, who's fought a little more than 2 times per year. So Gamrot's also active. It's just Arman's been very active as a young man here. And then Arman also has 2 more fights at the UFC level and almost 40 more minutes in the UFC cage. So even though Gamrot's got, a couple more fights, 110 more minutes in the pro cage, 3.5 more years as a pro, Arman has his advantages there as well. And then if we look at the finish stats and the durability, we get a slight edge for Gamrot, but it's the slightest of edges. Mateusz doesn't even finish at as high of a level as Arman does, because Mateusz is finishing at 60%, but Arman's finishing 67%. He's finished 12 of his 18, and it's 12 of 20 for Gamrot. But Mateusz has finished all 3 of his UFC wins, while Arman has only finished 2 of his 5 UFC wins. So Mateusz has never been finished as a pro, while Tsarukyan has been finished once in his career back in 2015 when Arman was 19 years old. I sent you the clip of that video earlier today, Brady. He just got caught with a left hook right on the chin. It could happen. He didn't see it coming, and it just slept him. But so I'm going to give Gamrot that slight durability edge because he's never been finished, and Arman has been finished once. And, the fact that Gamrot's a little bit better in terms of finishing at the UFC level. So it's very close in the measurables. It's very close in the pro experience. It's a little bit of an edge in the UFC experience for Tsarukyan, and it's a little bit of an edge in Gamrot in terms of finishing at the UFC level. But it's very close, Brady.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, on top of the experience, the 5-round experience, I think, is something to mention as well. Gamrot has been to the 4th round 3 different times, And if this fight does go into the fourth round, it'll actually be Tsarukyan's very first time in the fourth round. So I'm curious to see how he does look in those later rounds. But yeah, tail of the tape, very close. Experience, very close. But let's talk about these striking stats, Weezy.
Yeah, man. So we've got, I mean, I'm thinking it's like too close to call in terms of which one of these guys is the better striker. They've both got very similar striking stats thus far in the UFC. Tsarukyan's ratios, accuracy, volume, and durability thus far are all superior to Gamrot. While Mateusz throws more volume, he's landing knockdowns at a higher percentage, and he has almost 65% striking defense compared to 61.5% for Arman. But it just goes to show you once again that it's hard to tell who's better. Both of these guys' striking defense is sitting above 60%. That would be considered excellent pretty much in any weight class. Tsarukyan has a positive significant strike differential of about 2.4 significant strikes per minute. That's fantastic. But for Gamrot, he's got over 1.1. It's a 1.1 significant strike differential. That's really good as well. Both these guys are sitting right around 48% striking accuracy. That's very good. Both of these guys have landed a knockdown in their UFC career. Tsarukyan's never been knocked down, and Gamrot has been knocked down once. But, when you look at these numbers, the things that jump out the most are Tsarukyan's positive significant strike differential of 2.4 and the fact that he's doubling the volume of his opponents at 7.7 significant strike attempts per minute, and his opponents are only throwing 3.53. So, I mean, I guess if I had to give it to somebody, I would give it to Tsarukyan, but it's very close. It's too close to call, so I don't really know who to give the advantage to. But we've seen Gamrot sleep Holtzman, and we've seen Tsarukyan sleep Giagos. So they're both doing great work there.
Yeah, Gamrot's striking is really, really impressed me going back and watching. Like, he's a guy that, I don't know, it doesn't look like he hits that hard, but when he's like touching these guys up, like they're getting cut up. Like, you take a look at his record, he has multiple like doctor stoppages, corner stoppages, because that damage is just adding up. Like, he hurts people as the fight goes on. And yeah, he showed some power in that Holtzman fight as well. And then Tsarukyan's a guy that, his striking really impressed me. The Javi Ramos fight, I thought his striking looked really good. And then in the Alvarez fight, obviously his ground and pound looked really good. And then in the Giagos fight, his striking was looking really good up until him catching Giagos. So Gamrot, I like his striking a lot. And then Tsarukyan, I think his striking is really coming along. So on the feet, I don't know who has the advantage. I think it's going to be very, very close and competitive, Weezy.
Absolutely. And I mean, and then we get to the grappling and it's close once again. But when I dug into the stats just a little bit deeper, I found something that I liked. But I mean, we look here and we see that Tsarukyan out controlling his opponents at about a 3.5 to 1 ratio, 39.8% control time for, 12% control time against. So over half of Tsarukyan's fights are taking place in grappling control time positions for or against on the cage and on the mat. Tsarukyan's getting his takedowns at a 37% clip, averaging 3.47 takedowns per 15 minutes, showing 79% takedown defense, and getting control less than 1 out of 8 seconds of his UFC cage time. So just under 12% control time allowed. So we love those numbers. And then we look at Gamrot. Now, Gamrot's fights are taking place at a much higher percentage at striking range. So Gamrot, it's one of the reasons that I thought maybe I'd give him just a slight advantage in the striking, but then I couldn't come up with giving anybody an advantage. It would seem that Gamrot's a little more comfortable at striking range. Like if this were to be a 5-round striking match, I feel Gamrot would be more comfortable there. As we've seen, 80% of Gamrot's fights thus far in the UFC are taking place at striking range. So only 20% in the grappling realm, but Gamrot's been very committed to the takedown attempts. 4 fights and 30 takedown attempts. That's 7.5 takedown attempts per fight. And his average fight time is only 7.7 minutes. So that's 30 takedowns in 30.8 minutes of cage time for Mateusz Gamrot. So this guy is, even though he's only spending 20% of his fights in control time positions, he's definitely spending a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to get fights there. Tsarukyan, 43 takedown attempts in 69 minutes of cage time. So But, that's a little bit different because Tsarukyan's doing such a fantastic job of controlling his opponents. He's got about 28 minutes of control time so far, Brady, on only 16 takedowns. So he's definitely holding people down once he gets them there. So, both of these guys are really good, but, Gamrot, 5.83 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's also attempting submissions while Tsarukyan hasn't attempted a submission thus far. Tsarukyan seems to be the better control grappler, the better top position and grind out grappler, while Gamrot seems to be the better submission grappler, the guy that's trying to pass, the guy that's landing less ground and pound, but doing more trying to get the fight finished by finding a submission. Neither of these guys have had a submission attempted against them. And, Tsarukyan's been taken down 4 times in 19 attempts. But here's some interesting stats, Brady. If we were to throw out that Islam Makhachev fight for Arman Tsarukyan, then we would change these control time numbers from 39.82% control time for. That goes up to 47.57% control time for. The 12% control time allowed goes down to 4% control time allowed. So outside of the Islam Makhachev, fight, this guy is out controlling his opponents at about a 12-to-1 ratio is Tsarukyan. In addition to that, he's 15 of 31 on his takedowns. So he's actually getting his takedowns at a better clip than Gamrot is when he's not fighting Islam Makhachev. His striking accuracy goes up to 50%, so that's a little bit better. His striking defense goes up to 64.3%. And check this out. For DraftKings, Brady, Arman Tsarukyan is scoring 5 DraftKings points a minute and only allowing 1 when he's not fighting Islam Makhachev. How about that, dude? So when he's not fighting that top level, and I want to remind everybody, even just as a little bit of a prelude to the strength of schedule stats, that Arman Tsarukyan has never beaten anybody in the UFC that doesn't have at least a 500 or a winning record. So all the wins are already good. It's not like he's just beating up on cans when he's not fighting Islam Makhachev. This is against really good competition like Olivier Aubin-Mercier, Davy Ramos, Matt Frivola, Christos Yagos, Joel Alvarez, all guys that are known for their grappling pedigree. And then we bring another guy that's mostly known for his grappling pedigree, Mateusz Gamrot, and we've seen Tsarukyan go through these guys pretty easily. So will Gamrot be the next name on his list?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I thought you broke that down perfectly. Like, Tsarukyan is the better control grappler. Like, I like his wrestling a lot. I think he's the better wrestler overall. Whereas Gamrot, he's the better submission grappler. He'll be going for submissions. He's slick on the mat as well. Like, he'll roll for stuff. I don't know if he wants to do that in this fight, but he is really good on the mat. So I kind of feel like if there is takedowns in this fight, and it's tough because I've seen Gamrot go out there and get takedowns in his own right. I kind of feel like it's going to be Tsarukyan getting takedowns the majority of the time and getting on top. So in terms of the grappling, I kind of do like that Tsarukyan side. And on top of that, those taking the Makhachev fight out, I think is huge to mention because it is the Makhachev, and that does make a big difference. I think it made his takedown accuracy go to about 48%, that's insane.
Yeah, 47.5%, 15 of 31 on his takedowns, and even more importantly, his opponent's 0 of 10 on takedown attempts against outside of the Islam Makhachev. So both of these guys showing 100% takedown defense thus far in the UFC. If you throw out the Makhachev fight for Tsarukyan, but the difference is that Gamrot has only faced 2 takedown attempts in 4 fights, and if you throw out the Makhachev fight, Tsarukyan has faced 10 takedown attempts in 5 fights. So we do know that Tsarukyan's takedown defense has held up really well outside of that Makhachev fight, and he's only getting controlled 1 out of every 25 seconds. So 4% on the dot.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. Like, I'm curious, like, what is Gamrot's game off his back? Because we've seen Tsarukyan get taken down against Islam, and I thought he looked good. I thought he held his own. He's able to work his way back up. He was on his back for a second against Christos Giagos, was able to get right back up. I'm curious what happens if Tsarukyan does take down Gamrot. Will Gamrot be able to get back up, or will Tsarukyan be able to win minutes on the mat?
Yeah, well, I think that's what Tsarukyan's done such a fantastic job of, and that's why I thought it was really important to take out that Makhachev fight, because what was he, 21 when he took that fight on short notice against Islam Makhachev? So I mean, and yeah, even with that fight in the numbers, he's got 16 takedowns and he's only allowed 4. He's got 40% control time for, only 12% control time against. He's landing 3.75 significant strikes a minute and only absorbing 1.36. So, I mean, obviously this guy has already been elite, but the numbers get even better, and it paints that picture, Brady, about what Tsarukyan had, where that advantage that I talked about when we started breaking down this fight was. And that was when you throw out that Makhachev fight, this guy's controlling his opponents almost half of the cage time. So he's been that guy that gets you down, may be able to hang out in your guard, but he'll be able to stay there for long periods of time and win minutes there. So it's going to be really imperative for Mateusz Gamrot to scramble like hell whenever Arman gets him down, to make this a conditioning battle, to, not accept bottom position, because Arman is extremely good at winning minutes there. And Gamrot is winning 20% of the control time position, or of the total time in control time. Look at Tsarukyan's doubling that, and that's with the Makhachev fight in there. So I would say that that's Tsarukyan's biggest advantage, Brady, is his ability to be able to get people down, hold them down, and win a ton of minutes there.
100%. And I feel like in this fight, he's going to need to do a lot of that. And like we talked about earlier, I think the striking is going to be competitive, but I'm wondering if Tsarukyan can do that game plan and do it for 5 rounds. So that's going to be interesting to see. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. We have Effie. What is up, Effie? Saying, my buddy was a sparring partner for Arman this camp at Syndicate. Nice. Rooting for a finish for him. There you go. Hopefully he gets it done for you, Effie. We got Lou Betcha saying, here's the real question. If not for the obliteration of Joe Alvarez, what's the line? I think he'd be a decent-sized favorite still, probably not minus 260, but there's a lot of hype on Joe Alvarez for some reason. So seeing Tsarukyan go in there and do that to Joe Alvarez, I think that's why we're getting such a big line. But I still think he'd be a decent-sized favorite, don't you think, Weezy?
Dude, don't forget, he was minus 225 against Joel Alvarez, and there was a ton of hype on Alvarez, and there was a ton of street guys on Alvarez. The MMA Twitter was on Alvarez. He was the dog of the week, and that line never moved. This guy Tsarukyan probably, if he was minus 240 against Alvarez, it makes sense this line being minus 225 against a guy like Gamrot. It goes to show you that the people with the deep pockets, the people who move betting markets, weren't fooled by Joel Alvarez last time around.
Absolutely not. The people knew that
and look
down.
At Headley One. Look what Headley One just said, and that's exactly why.
Yeah.
And it was literally 0%. The guy folds like a lawn chair if you look at him. So it was going to be, we knew it was going to be very easy for Tsarukyan to take him down. The question is, would he be able to stay safe there, because Alvarez is so slick off his back? And he proved not only could he stay safe, but that he could just wreak havoc down there.
100%. And it's funny looking back on that, right? We have Tsarukyan, who's a crazy wrestler, and Joe Alvarez, 0% takedown defense.
Yeah. So, that was a really tough matchup for Alvarez, but Alvarez is slick off his back, and, and he was live to pick up something that way, but Tsarukyan was not afraid of that.
Absolutely not. And Alvarez has that new striking as well. So yeah, I mean, that was a really good win. It was a really good win. It really was. But let's see if I missed anything. There's one other thing. Chris saying Gamrot has to make it ugly with pressure. Absolutely. I think pressure is going to be key for Gamrot. He's going to have to make Tsarukyan work. 100%. Brandon saying, I like the ground and pound by both guys. Yeah, for sure. The analytics lean fight doesn't go because I feel like hopefully the analytics lean fight doesn't go. I feel like someone gets the ground and pound stoppage, and hey, that can definitely be on the table. And Weezy will talk about the fight goes and fight doesn't go in a second, but I think it is leaning towards the fight doesn't go when we're factoring in those 5-round analytics, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got something to show you guys for that. So, I mean, we're never going to leave you out in the cold when it comes to Uncle Weezy's 5-round analytics to get that extra edge over the bookies on these 5-round fights. So they're very important. But what else gives us an edge is to look at these strength of schedule stats. And what I've found in the strength of schedule stats for this fight is that Arman Tsarukyan is fighting the better win-loss ratio competition. He's fighting guys with better records overall, but it's Mateusz Gamrot who's fighting the more experienced competition up to this point. With fights like, against guys like Diego Ferreira and Jeremy Stephens and Scott Holtzman, who had 7 wins in the UFC going into that fight. So he's fighting the more experienced competition. But look at that ratio of 2.43 for Tsarukyan there. So this guy comes in to the UFC at 21 years of age. He's got 6 fights. And, and these guys that he's fighting, 5.67 wins, 2.33 losses on average. So excellent in, UFC records. And the guys that he's beating aren't cans either, with a 1.85 win to loss ratio and almost 8 total fights with 4.8 wins and 2.6 losses. So, and the guys that are beating him are Islam Makhachev. And then for Gamrot, it's a 7.5 and 6.25 record is the average record of the guy that he faces. And the guys that he's beating, 10 wins and 8.33 losses. So 1.2 ratio. Very experienced veteran competition that he's beating, like Scott Holtzman, like Jeremy Stephens, like Diego Ferreira. While Tsarukyan comes in against Makhachev, but then he, racks up 5 straight wins. And with the one thing that you could say about all these guys, Mercier, Ramos, Frivola, Yagos, Alvarez, all of them excellent grapplers. So, he's seen good grapplers before, but Gamrot was seeing a little bit of trouble on the feet from Diego Ferreira. Ferreira was stopping a lot of those takedown attempts, and it looked like Ferreira was starting to get to him before he hurt his rib. And Ferreira was a big underdog in that fight too. I think I got like plus 160 on Ferreira when I bet on him. So the strength of schedule stats are very close, but I would lean Tsarukyan here, having faced the guy, in his debut that's probably going to be champion, and then beating only guys with winning records in the UFC after that is very impressive.
Yeah, and somebody said it in the chat. I want to say it was True Shot. He was talking about how his last 3 opponents, Gamrot, they're all over like 37 years old. Like Ferreira, he's like 37, 38, right? Stevens is he's like 37, right?
Yeah, they're all up there for sure. Yeah. They're all veterans, I think I have all that up here, but no, I don't. I don't have UFC stats up. But yeah, he's right. They're older guys, and Tsarukyan's young, man. This is a young man. This is a 25-year-old kid.
Yeah. Lou Betcha, shout out to Lou Betcha. He's saying a minus 15,000 for the draw, for not the draw. And then he's saying it parlay it with Fry, Jinyu Fry, and saying get minus 300 down to minus 296. Any thoughts on that parlay, Weezy? Jinyu Fry parlayed with this fight to not be a draw. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so that's what we try to do. We try to find that value here at the MMA Engine. We try to give you, and if we can get that minus 300 back down to minus 296, then it's worth the $3,000 a month you're going to be paying us. Let me tell you, this is how we find value.
Goodness, don't do that. don't do that. All right, Weezy, we went through the tail of the tape. We went through the experience, the finish stats, the striking stats, the grappling stats, the strength of schedule. To be honest, after talking it through with you in the chat, I feel much better in terms of my prediction. But let us take a look at the odds, and then also you guys in the chat, let me know what your favorite play for this fight is. Do you like a prop? Do you like a side? Anything sticking out for you guys in the chat? We'll talk about it. And then we'll also talk about a Lou bet as well. So we have the odds here. And this is kind of where I'm like, I don't know, man. Tsarukyan opened at minus 140, and he's currently minus 265. Gamrot opened up plus 120, and he's currently plus 225. I don't like those odds. I don't. Any thoughts on those odds? Do you think they're too wide? Do you think they're just right?
Yeah. There's some recency bias in there because, like you say, Tsarukyan just looked fantastic against Alvarez. And frankly, that looked like a horror movie. Alvarez, that canvas was absolutely drenched in blood. So, those kind of things pop out, and that was a big finish there for Tsarukyan to get over a very hyped opponent. So, I see why the line is getting this wide. And when I break down this fight, the one thing, like I say, Brady, that I see is that I believe that Tsarukyan will be able to win the wrestling battles and get on top here and win a lot of minutes there. And if he's able to do that, I don't see enough difference in the striking, in the conditioning, in the strength of schedule in the past in order to make me believe that that's going to be enough in order to overcome what I see as the minute winning advantage for Arman Tsarukyan on the ground here. So that's why I think that it's Tsarukyan, but like these guys have both got serious power in their striking. You can't underestimate that. I would think that Tsarukyan 4-5 decision, if I could get it around even, would be something I'd be betting. But man, I think that Gamrot could land a big shot. I think that Arman could land a big shot. It's such an intriguing fight, but the time props is something that I'm looking at here, and I think I might have found us some value.
Sweet. Well, yeah, we'll talk about this in a second, but I feel like this, I completely agree with a true shot here. Tsarukyan wins, but you can't bet the line. I don't think you could bet that line. I mean, it's up there. It really is up there. -2. It's already -260, 65 on some books, and it's probably even going to get wider. So, yeah, I agree. I like Tsarukyan to win, but -260. I think we're counting out Gamrot a little bit here. I mean, Gamrot, he's good everywhere in his own right. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Tsarukyan will be the one that does get the takedowns. He does get the control time. I think he could do it for 5 rounds, although we've never seen him get into that 4th and 5th round. But yeah, Gamrot he's really good as well. So that's kind of I don't like that line, but yeah, I do think Tsarukyan does win. But we'll take a look at the props here. We have the over under set at 4.5 rounds, the over 4.5 -125. The under 4.5 is -105. The fight goes to decision +100. The fight doesn't go to decision is -130. And Weezy, I think bringing up those analytics for the 5-round fights is something huge, and that's something that really does stick out.
It's something that a lot of people don't know, but if you watch the MMA Engine YouTube channel, you have access to this information. So how many fights have there been that have been 5 rounds at 155 pounds since 2013? Well, of course, I have that answer, and there have been 43 of them. So at -130, we're looking at, about a 56% implied probability, something like that. Well, it turns out, get out your little computer calculator here, Brady, because we got to find out what 31 divided by 43 is.
That is 72.
72%. So 72%
-257.
-257 is the corresponding line with the implied probability of the long-term finish rate of 5-round fights in the 155-pound division, strictly in the UFC. So that is an alarming amount. Last week we looked, and it was something like 54% for the featherweight division. We're talking about almost a 20% divergence from that. And we're getting a line where we're barely paying over 50% for the implied probability of a -130 fight doesn't go, or even better yet, a +100 under 4.5, because there's only one fight that went over 4.5 rounds and didn't and finished, and that was Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. So we could get that 31 out of 43, to 32 out of 43, in terms of in terms of what went over. So it's not bad, I mean, like that little bit of analytics there tells us that we're getting a discount. Plus, we've never seen Gamrot at 5 rounds in the UFC, and we've never seen Tsarukyan at 5 rounds in the UFC. Another thing to keep in mind here is that Tsarukyan's young, and he's had rough weight cuts making 156. This is a 5-round fight. Dude, he missed weight. He weighed in at 157 versus Frivola. So, if he has a rough weight cut, if we see one of these guys land a big shot, I think there's a lot of reasons the fight doesn't go here. But what I think people, from what I'm hearing out there, I think a lot of people like this fight to go to decision. So I think we can wait. We might even be able to get it at -120 or -115.
Yeah, I mean, you check the Bet MMA tips, and it's just filled with the overs. It's filled with the fight goes. So yeah, I agree. If you do like a fight doesn't go the under, I'd wait. And that I wanted to bring something else up. Something that chat asked earlier. I think it was Fireside saying who has the better cardio. And I went back and watched which fight was it? I think it was the Holtzman fight. And one of the announcers were talking about how Gamrot said that he didn't have the cardio to go out there and push a wrestling heavy pace in the Grom fight. He said he didn't have the cardio that he wanted, which was interesting because that was a 3-round fight. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I mean that's an interesting question. Who's going to have the better cardio down the stretch? We've seen Garam. I mean, we've seen Gamrot go into the 5th round. We haven't seen Tsarukyan. Any idea? Do you think who's going to have the better cardio down the stretch, Weezy?
Yeah, I remember that exact comment because I was watching that fight today, and I said, like, that's weird that Gamrot would say that because he shot 16 fucking takedowns against Guram Kutateladze. He got 5 of them. So for him to say, yeah, I didn't have the cardio to push the pace that I wanted there, I think that's kind of interesting for a guy who fought 3 hard rounds and was getting takedowns at the end of the 3rd round against a really well-conditioned and tough Guram Kutateladze. So I think that we can expect to see very good conditioning out of both of these guys, but I'm expecting a little bit better out of Gamrot. He doesn't carry as much muscle on his frame as Tsarukyan does, and we've seen him, because he was KSW champion, fight those 5-round fights in the past.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like we know for a fact that he can go 5 rounds with Tsarukyan. We don't know yet. We're kind of guessing there. But let's take a look at some more odds here, see if anything sticks out. We talked about the violence there, -130. Tsarukyan by KO +275. Gamrot by KO +650. Tsarukyan sub 500. Gamrot sub 700. Tsarukyan inside the distance +150. Gamrot inside the distance +400. Tsarukyan by decision +165. Gamrot by decision +475. Anything sticking out for you on those? Nothing really catching my eye there.
I mean, those props on Gamrot are so juicy. If you're on that Gamrot side, it's really hard to, look away from +450 for inside the distance and by decision. Man, if you've got to lean one way or another, you could just throw down a quarter unit and win over 1 with very little exposure. And like we said, that's the thing about this fight, Brady, is when you have to dig really deep. And I had to go into my stats and throw out that Makhachev fight in order to find the kind of evidence I felt I needed to find that there was one spot out of 8 where one of these guys had an advantage over the other, right? Yeah. I mean, and we're paying -260, -270 for one of these guys and getting +225 on the other. So it really does feel like the money line on Gamrot feels like the better long-term value bet. Like if you bet that every week, over a long term, you're going to come out ahead, because I think that this is a close fight. But what we haven't seen yet is how Gamrot reacts on the bottom at this level. And the reality is that he could just get stuck there. I mean, and in a turn, he might not even have a bad game, bad bottom game, or a good, he might have a really good sweep game, but Tsarukyan can just make you look really bad. And that's the kind of game that Tsarukyan brings. He's been facing the top grapplers, and his control time is sitting almost at 50% already. So it's very, very interesting, that I think that control time, the ability to be able to win minutes and control time positions is Tsarukyan's biggest advantage here.
100%. Totally agree. Donald saying, I think you have to go with Gamrot or pass at the odds. If you're talking, money line bet, I'd probably go Gamrot or pass, but it's hard to bet against either of these guys, really. Rob saying, say I was to throw a big bet this weekend, should I do a single money line bet or prop, perhaps Shavkat, Umar, or Vieira finishes? The Vieira finish is like -700. Wouldn't touch that. Umar's like -1,000. Wouldn't touch that. If anything, I guess Shavkat. But any lean there, Weezy?
I think maybe if he's talking about a Shavkat inside the distance parlayed with Umar inside the distance, and then maybe like the Vieira Curtis fight finishes inside the, doesn't go to decision. I think that would be a pretty good parlay piece, but in terms of just taking the fight doesn't go to decision for those fights, I mean, don't forget Neil Magny's a great minute winner and a great decisionator. So that fight could go over if Magny has his way. And the same thing for Umar. If he doesn't get that rear naked choke, Manis might be able to, kind of make that a really greasy fight. But I like those guys. I mean, I think if Shavkat wins, he wins inside the distance. I think if Umar wins, he probably wins inside the distance. And I think that Curtis Vieira, if that went the full 3 rounds, I'd be shocked.
The world would be shocked. The bookies would be shocked as well. Those fight doesn't go lines are insane. Let's see if I missed anything here. Raw Torque saying the under 4.5 minus 125. I actually saw that. I think at plus money. The under 4.5 is minus 105 for the under 4.5. So money is coming in on those overs.
Yeah, and that's great, because like I say, I think that these guys are both great finishers. They've finished 5 of their 8 combined wins at this level. It's just that neither one of them has been finished at this level, but it's a 5-round fight, and both of these guys fight a very exhausting style. We saw Gamrot attempting a takedown per minute thus far, and for it's about 2/3 of a takedown per minute for Tsarukyan, but he's spending almost 50% of his fights in control time positions, just 4. So he can only have so many minutes where he's not in control time positions already. So yeah, these guys are both very active wrestlers. So going the full 25 minutes at that pace is going to be exhausting.
It certainly is. Scorecards equals no action. It's about the same as the money line. Tsarukyan minus 240, Gamrot plus 190. Yeah, nothing really else is sticking out here. So we went through everything. Weezy went through the tail of the tape, experience, finish stats, all that good stuff. And I came away, definitely on the Tsarukyan side here. I do like the fact that I think he will be winning the wrestling. I think he'll be the one to get on top. I'm not sure what Gamrot does look like off his back. I'm more confident in saying that Tsarukyan will be able to get takedowns and hold down Gamrot, where I don't really think Gamrot will be able to do the same to Tsarukyan. I think the striking is pretty close and competitive. I guess the one thing that kind of worries me and the one question mark I do have is if Tsarukyan does come out here and wrestles with a very hectic wrestling pace like he has done in the past. He had like 10 takedowns in the Frivola fight. Can he do that for 5 rounds? I guess it's my one question. But yeah, I do like Tsarukyan here, and I do lean him ever so slightly. Notice I say ever so slightly, and I do disagree with the line. Minus 260 is definitely up there. But I mean, there's hype on this guy. There's hype on both guys, but it's different with Tsarukyan. This is a guy that people are expecting to potentially be champ one day. So I like Tsarukyan here. And as far as a bet, I think the fight doesn't go, especially waiting later in the week. If that goes to plus money, I think that's a very good look. Don't mind the Tsarukyan 4-5 decision. I don't mind the over 2.5 rounds. I think it's going to be a very wrestling heavy pace. And I think this does go over. I think it does get extended. If there's a finish, I think it is in that 3rd, 4th, or 5th round. So those are kind of the spots I like. But yeah, I like Tsarukyan here to get it done. Don't even know if I parlay him up at this price as well. So I like Tsarukyan, but as far as a bet, I'm not going to be touching anything from a money line perspective. Weezy, how about you? Who are you going with? And what are your favorite bets for this fight?
Yeah, I'm picking Tsarukyan by decision for this one, but I also think that, a 4-5 decision is the way that I would bet it, because I could definitely see a late finish either way in this fight. And I think I'm going to be taking a poke on fight doesn't go to decision at minus 115, minus 120, I think is as high as I would pay for it. But I love those analytics of 5-round fights finishing inside the distance 72% of the time. That is very hard to look away from when you're only paying 52, 53% implied probability on the line. And you see guys that are finishing at a 62% rate thus far in 8 UFC wins. And in pro wins, we're talking a 63% rate, 24 of 38. So these guys are excellent finishers. So I think that analytics is pushing me towards a fight doesn't go bet. And if I were to pick a bet to represent one side or the other, it would be Tsarukyan 4-5 decision, preferably at plus money, but I don't even know if that's going to be possible.
Yeah, we'll have to look out for that line later in the week. But yeah, I think that's a really solid look. Carrillo liking that Arman TKO in the 4th round. We got Lou with the Lou bet saying Tsarukyan 3rd round KO plus 1800. And yeah, that was the Lou bet plus 1800 round 3 KO. Fireside saying 234 Arman. What is up, Tony? How are you doing? Where is the violence this week, Silky B? Yeah, there's a couple violent spots I really like. We'll talk about it more on probability, but yeah, a lot of things sticking out as well. So looking forward to that. But yeah, Weezy, we did it. Went about 45 minutes like we usually do. Broke it down. Great fight. We are both on the Tsarukyan side. We are both leaning some violence. I like the later violence props as well. So yeah, Weezy, I guess I'm gonna kick it to you. Let people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week for some content.
Yeah, so tonight I'll be going live on the MMA Engine YouTube channel, 10 o'clock Central Time, for a balls deep breakdown in this co-main event between Neil Magny and Shavkat Rakhmonov. It's a great fight. It's a banger, and it's very high level. So why not break that one down? Yeah, you can find me on my channel, Uncle Weezy, on Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time, for just the tip. I'll do all 12 of these fights. Let's break them down from a stats and tape study perspective. Finish with a greasy 4-leg parlay and Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Even though the bets didn't come through last week, boy, I nailed the ass shaving. That Phil Hawes over Darren Wynn was hard to watch. I mean, Darren Wynn was a punching bag in there, but showed a lot of heart. Wow, but that was one-sided, just a complete ass shaving. So at least I got that right. We're on a roll with the ass shaving of the week. And then you can find me on Pub Sports Radio for Stat Diggers, for the DFS show on Wednesday, and for the watch along on Saturday. So we got to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 57. So let's get it, you guys.
Man, Hawes is a problem, dude. Did you see those combinations he was landing with his elbows? Like, he had to have landed like 50 elbows.
I don't know how Darren Wynn took all that, because it's clear he was the last one to weigh in. He had another rough weight cut. So the fact that he was able to take all those shots, I mean, Hawes hits like a truck, dude. That was bad. He might be in the hospital for a minute.
Yeah, and every time like Hawes would land an elbow, like Wynn would start wobbling, and I thought Herb would stop it, and then he finally stopped it. It was hard. It was hard to watch for sure.
It was really hard to watch, and I was screaming for that to be stopped. You can watch that on the Pub Sports Radio watch along this week. I was like, for the love of Jah, Herb, stop the damn fight, and he just wouldn't do it, man. That was hard to watch.
Yeah, I almost lost my voice screaming at Herb. I was like, Herb, what are you doing? Stop the fight. I have a violence bet here. I need to cash it. But yeah, that was a good one. So yeah, guys, thank you all for hanging out. We had a good amount of people in here for a fight night card. So thank you all for hanging out. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe here to the MMA Engine. Lots of content coming your guys' way in the near future this week as well. And yeah, follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. My full card breakdown will be out on Wednesday, a little behind this week, but it'll be out, I think, on Wednesday there. So best of luck, guys. Let us make some money. UFC Vegas 57 should be a great card, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. See you guys.